Hello, childrens. Welcome back to another edition of Old Man Screaming at Clouds. Today, what we're going to talk about is probably one of the most important things that I think you can focus on in life, and it's effort. So, there's a lot of content that I've spoken about in these videos that I think you actually could find in other places. So, the first video was kind of on finances and the importance of having good financial habits. You can find 1,000 of those videos on YouTube. But what I don't see a ton of is content that talks to you about your effort level. And it's one of the few elements of success that I think is completely within your realm to at least impact. And I would actually argue that you are the only one who's fully in control of it. So there are factors we don't like to talk about this and we don't like to admit it because we don't like things being out of our control, but there are a lot of elements of success that you don't control, right? You can do something about it and you can impact it, but you don't have full control over it. So as much as no one likes to admit this, luck does play a pretty big part in a lot of things in life. So opportunities are one of them. Give you a perfect example of this. When I came out of college, I didn't have quite the same opportunities as some of the other people I went to college with. So, for example, a guy who lived on my floor at the dorms, his family owned a company and he got a great opportunity coming right out of college to start gaining experience and get trusted with kind of high impact roles within that company, right? Well, not just anybody gets that opportunity, right? Because his family had started the company, and I'm not being critical of this, it's just a statement of fact. He had an opportunity that I didn't have. By the same token, coming out of college, my dad worked at General Electric, and he was able to tell me about a job opening. Now, it wasn't fancy. I literally started out on the shop floor doing pretty much grunt work, but it was a foot in the door. And that's an opportunity that not everybody else had either. So, while I could look at the guy I lived on in the dorms with and say, man, be jealous and envious and say, oh, he got lucky. He had an opportunity that I could never get. Other people could look at me and say the exact same thing. I had an opportunity that not everybody else had. I did get the job. So not only did I apply for an interview for the job, but I got it. And I'm not positive, but I'm pretty confident that at least a percentage of that was due to my dad working there and having a good reputation at the company. So that is something that wasn't totally in my control. Now, what was in my control was how I presented myself at the interview, how I prepared for the interview. Uh, that was something I could control, right? So that is where effort comes into play. And it is so crucial. Anything that you do in life, if you want to be good at it, if you want to do well at it, you need to put in effort. And I would tell you, put in the most effort you can if it's something that matters to you. So whether that's sports, whether it's relationships, whether it's your job, whether it's school, in a lot of these cases, especially school and your job, you have to be there, okay? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, future children. You don't have a gigantic inheritance. You're going to have to work, okay? Unless I win the lottery between now and the time that you view this video, you're going to have to get a job, all right? You won't be able to coast through life. So you have to be at that job at specific times every day. And you have to work X number of hours every day. Or if it's project based, you have to work until the project is done. You have to be there. The same is true of school. You have to be there. Your mom and I are legally required to make sure that you go to school. You have to be in the classroom for that period of the day. So whether you put in zero effort or 100% effort, you're in the same place and you're stuck there. So why not do your best? If you do your best, you get good grades. If you get good grades, you get additional privileges from mom and dad, right? You don't get lectured. You don't get consequences. So since you're there anyway and you can't be anywhere else, you might as well put in your best effort. And if you get in the habit of doing that all the time, that will, I would tell you, it will always pay off for you in the long run. Now, in the immediate term, can you try really hard at something and fail? Absolutely. Uh, Using myself as an example, there were classes that I tried really hard in, like calculus in college. I just didn't have what it took. Uh, but I certainly did better because I tried hard than I would have if I didn't, where I probably would have failed the class. Instead, I did pass it. Sports, another example. I tried really hard at swimming, at least after my first year. My first year, my freshman year, I didn't try very hard and I didn't do very well. So I was off the team after the JV invite. I didn't get selected for conference, sectionals, or state. That made me upset, right? So I worked really, really hard the entire off season, and the very next year I made it to state. So there's a perfect example. Nothing about me changed. I didn't grow 6 inches. My arms and hands didn't get longer and bigger. I didn't get a million times stronger. Literally, the only difference between freshman year Greg and sophomore year Greg was the level of effort I put in. And I went from being one of the first people cut, not cut, I made the team and I swam the entire season, but the JV invite was the soonest you could be done with your season. And I was done then freshman year. Fast forward literally 1 year, and I finished at the state meet, which was the farthest you could get. I guess you could go to nationals. I didn't make that, but nothing about me had changed other than my effort level. And I went almost as far as you could go. And I was a distance swimmer. And at 5'10" I was not built to be a distance swimmer. Okay. If you look at a lot of people who are really elite swimmers, especially for men, they're like 6'4". They have really long arms, gigantic hands and feet. I wasn't that, but I still was pretty successful, especially for a person built like me. And it was literally all effort. It was just me trying as hard as I possibly could and outworking everybody else. Uh, if you take that kind of mentality into everything that you do, you're going to succeed. You just will at some point through sheer force of will, if nothing else. Even if you don't get the same opportunities everyone else does, you might still rise to the top. Another example of this, if we take it outside of the world of sports and into the world of, let's go to college first and then we'll talk about a professional example. So somehow I got into the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Very good school, tough school. And my philosophy on education had always been I will do the bare minimum to keep my parents off my back. I never enjoyed school when I was, basically from the time I was in kindergarten all the way through high school. I basically didn't care really about school inherently. I just cared about keeping my parents off my back. I didn't see how I was going to ever use any of this information. I didn't understand why I was being forced to learn a lot of it. There were classes I enjoyed, so I enjoyed Spanish class and I got A's, always got A's in Spanish because I liked it. The rest of the classes I'd get B's because mostly that kept my parents from nagging me. Occasionally I'd get a C if I really hated the class or just didn't understand it. Most of the time, though, I'll be honest, it wasn't an understanding problem. I just didn't feel like putting in the effort. So that was my philosophy all through high school. I somehow still snuck into the University of Wisconsin. And the first semester, I had massive imposter syndrome. So I didn't think I belonged there. I thought everybody there was going to be way smarter than I was. So I worked pretty hard. And I actually made the dean's list my first semester. So I think I had like a 3.6 or 3.7 grade point average. And I thought, wow, this was actually easier than I thought it was. I don't have to work that hard. Next semester, grades went down. They weren't terrible, but they were much more along the line of what I was used to getting, which was B's and a few A's sprinkled in. And I basically kind of kept that philosophy throughout my undergraduate career. Graduated with like a 3.4 grade point average at Wisconsin and got a Spanish linguistics degree. Again, because for me, Spanish was really easy and I didn't have to work that hard at it. My business classes, which was what I originally planned to major in, required more work, and I didn't want to deal with that. I wanted to hang out with my friends and party. So I didn't get the greatest grades, and I didn't get the major that I probably should have gotten based on the career path I've ended up choosing. So fast forward to getting lucky and getting an opportunity that not everybody gets, and my dad helping me to get a job at GE. Well, once I was there, I realized that my Spanish linguistics degree was probably not going to help me out a ton. It might help me out a little bit, but it wasn't, based on the career path I was now on and the trajectory I was on, it wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. It wasn't going to help me stand out that much. Now, fortunately, at the time, again, luck, opportunity, GE offered a tuition reimbursement program. So I could go back to school and they would pay for it as long as I did well enough. So this is where effort comes in. I was already working a full-time job. This wasn't going to be easy, but I recognized an opportunity to put myself in the position I felt like I should have put myself in to begin with. And I signed up for the master's program. So I went back to school to get my master's degree this time, and this time I did do it in business. And I ended up doing very well there. And the difference was I could connect the dots. Now I could see why it was important for me to pay attention and work hard at this, because I could see how the information was actually going to help me. And I ended up graduating with like a 3.7 or 3.8 grade point average. Many of the quarters, I actually had a 4.0. Some stuff happened in life. I think I ended up having to leave in the middle of one of the semesters because my grandma was dying. I was very distracted. I think I also got married at that time. So there was a lot going on. And that semester I didn't do particularly well, and that brought my grades down. But going into that, I had a 4.0 going. And literally, I didn't get any smarter between my undergraduate program and grad school. I just worked harder. I cared more and I invested more of myself in it. And so I ended up getting my master's degree, which did help me to stand out a little bit and probably opened some doors. Um, One of those doors was how I got into sales. So I was working in tech support at the time, and I stood out in the tech support department because I worked hard and wanted to be one of the best, and I learned the information quickly, and I was willing to take calls other people wouldn't. I was willing to do field service work, which other people in tech support didn't want to do. Again, effort level. And a job opened up in sales, and I applied for it. And I didn't get it. They hired somebody else. Fast forward a few months. Now, I could have said, I got rejected, they don't want me, this isn't the right job for me. But I didn't. A few months later, another job opened up in that same department. I applied again. I interviewed again. Think I got the job? I did not. Second time in a row. Shot down, they hired somebody else. I could have taken that as a sign, right? This wasn't the right opportunity for me. I didn't. Now, part of this was your mom encouraged me again to not give up, but I didn't give up. Later on, third time, job opens up in sales. I applied for it. This time I did actually get it. And that's how I ended up. If I hadn't done that, who knows if I ever would have gotten a chance in sales. And it's been a good fit for me. It's a tough job. It's not always It's not always easy, even if you are, if you do have traits that lend themselves well to sales, it's still hard. I still have to work at it every day. But I may not have ever gotten there if I had accepted failure at any of those previous points, like a lot of people do in life. That was all just down to effort. That was not giving up, and it was being willing to keep picking myself up off the canvas when I got knocked down. That's 100% in your control, okay? In life, you're not always going to succeed at everything the first time you try it. The people that end up succeeding are the people who refuse to accept failure. Unless you are just so unbelievably gifted at something that no matter how hard you try, you'll be good at it. And most people are not, okay? Most people are not that good at anything. They just succeed because they keep trying. Every time they fail, they learn something from it. They get a little bit better. They try again. Maybe they still fail. They learn something from that. They get a little bit better. They keep going until eventually they are actually pretty good at it. There's a saying for that. It's called failing forward. So your little failures along the way teach you something. You learn from it. You incorporate that into the way you do things. You get better at it. Next time you're good at it, or you're at least better than you were. That is totally in your control. And the sooner you start incorporating that into your life and it just becomes a part of your mentality, the faster you are going to get better at things. So, at any rate, enough rambling. I really, man, if you didn't listen to a single video I've done until now, listen to this one, because this is probably one of the things that's made the biggest difference in my life, is just having that willingness to keep trying day in, day out, every day, make an effort, do something positive. Uh, you will not regret it if you do that. So I hope this helps. Love you very much, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Thanks.